Raptors fans, don't panic too much. We know it's not going the way you wanted in Wells Fargo Center. Last night, 104-101, the score. Toronto Raptors fall in overtime to the Philadelphia 76ers, Joel Embiid and the gang. But we're going to stick with the positive to start the show, and that is the play of Pascal Siakam. Now that he's been back on the floor, looking for that extra all-star nod for that Supermax contract. And also, like he talks about, he just wants to win. He just wants to get a win, and he's doing his part, right, Jonesy? There's not much more you can ask for a guy. 38, 15, and 6 on the night.
I thought he was really good last night, and coming off a couple of games where, and it's something that we had talked about on Raptors Tonight, where Fred was aggressive with a couple of 39-point games. Scotty got his feel in the Nets game. And it was almost as if Pascal was kind of sitting back, and I believe it was Jack that said that, kind of recalibrating. Like, okay, these guys are driving today. Where the bus is in their control. Where do I sit on this bus to make sure that I can help, but it's not my turn to drive? And I thought last night, on the second night of the back-to-back, and maybe it's a thing with Philly too. Like maybe Pascal is become conditioned to playing against P.J. Tucker and knows he's a good defender and goes at him, and
they have good conversations during the game.
They do, and Pascal was really good last night. He played the way your top player is supposed to play in a big game. The scoring, the rebounding, making big shots, being aggressive. That was a performance that could have yielded a Raptor win last night, no question about it.
Clutch too, right, Sherm? I mean, that final bucket to send this thing to overtime was all Pascal.
Yeah, great balance. The finish was very athletic, and his spatial awareness, the touch on the release, he was really good. And what I really enjoyed about Pascal in that game was that he had the ability to attack and know how to attack each defender that's trying to defend him. Joel Embiid was on him. He put the ball on the floor, shook him up, got to where he wanted to, was able to create separation. With P.J. Tucker, through 4 quarters, what we saw from Pascal was his ability to get to a spot, knowing if he created a little bit of separation, he could just elevate over the smaller P.J. Tucker. P.J. Tucker had the advantage at the lower center of gravity and at the strip down. Once Pascal got past that and got to a spot and elevated, P.J. Tucker couldn't do anything about it. So the way he went about it was very methodical, and he really broke down each defender in a very effective way. Now, in overtime, that changed. P.J. Tucker, his defense really came to the forefront against Pascal, but through 4 quarters, I thought he did a great job of just doing what he wanted to do with precision. And really, if he wasn't scoring like that, how did the Raptors stay in that game?
Well, and that's the other thing, Sherm. We talk about this all the time. There are points in a game where you have to make a couple of big shots or else you won't be able to turn off the water.
Momentum killers.
Toronto was like they were down double digits numerous times in the game, and they were teetering. It's 13, it's 14. Like you need a stop and a score to get it down to like 11.
Something they couldn't do against Golden State.
Right. You need that to keep you in the game. And I think Pascal was responsible for a lot of those, big shots just to keep you in the game. My analogy is boxing, right? You're on the ropes and the guy's coming in to finish you off and boom, boom, you tag him and back him up. And he's like, hold on a minute. Maybe this isn't going to be as easy as I thought. And you rally a bit. And I thought Pascal made some of those shots to kind of keep the team in the game. And then, as Sherm talked about at the end, his that was a really tough shot to tie the game. He's going away from the basket. Iceman finger roll, scoops it up underhand off the glass where there's nothing but dust up there. I mean, he was big last night.
Well, it was a big 16-point third quarter.
Right.
The second unit for Philadelphia came in the second quarter and did a great job, really extended the lead. And we know how important.
And they played the zone, too, right?
And we know how important it is to come out the locker room in the first 3 to 5 minutes. You got to get some stuff done. Pascal was great in that third quarter and really gave his team an answer to what Philadelphia did in the second quarter. So he was phenomenal scoring the basketball and rebounding. He had 15 rebounds.
Yeah, you guys touched on the major stretches when the Raptors' second unit came in. They struggled in that second quarter. Then the third quarter to the fourth quarter, the Raptors really took control of things. But then came the fourth quarter, and, of course, the struggles to shoot from 3 in overtime. What did you guys see? Was it just a matter of running out of gas? Or, Sherm, I'll start with you. What happened in that fourth quarter? Did they overexert themselves to get back in it?
Not necessarily. I think Philadelphia, they're at home.
Yeah.
They've won 4 in a row coming into that game. They were shooting as a team over 50% as a team, over 44% from the three-point line. So offensively, you knew Philly was going to get it going because they only shot like 31% in the first quarter. So you knew Philly was going to get some type of momentum. And in the fourth quarter, the Raptors were up 7. Philly goes on a 10-0 run.
Yeah.
Changes the whole dynamic. The crowd's into it now, and now they're saying this is a team we've seen win 4 in a row. They're back to who they are. It's the response that the Raptors had after that, what got it to overtime. So as much as the Raptors let Philly kind of take control of that fourth quarter, the Raptors did enough to get it to overtime on a court of a team that is hot, one of the hottest teams in the NBA, with one of the hottest players in the NBA in Joel Embiid. So there were some mistakes by the Raptors defensively. I go back and I just try to pull out a play, and to me it's that James Harden drive full court.
Right.
And he gets all the way to the basket and nobody veers him off or gets in front of him. You've got to be better defensively. You've got to be able to at least present some resistance to the ball before it breaks the free throw line or the three-point line. They didn't do that, and that was part of that run, and you could see the confidence building for Philly at that point.
You know, Akil, to your point about the three-point shooting, man, they had good looks.
Yeah,
it's not like you know, Pascal's look at the end of the game was pretty well defended. He was close, but he had to do that himself, and he got a decent look. There was a sequence, I don't know if it was late third quarter, might have been in the overtime, where Fred and Scotty played a two-man game on the elbow on the far side, and it was masterful. It was like a little dribble handoff in there, then a rescreen. Scotty had it. It ended up where Scotty pitched it out to Fred, and he had a wing three that was wide open, and it went halfway down. It hit 2 rims, like front, back, and out. And that's a shot that you would trust Fred to take every time.
Yep.
And, I mean, he had a tough night shooting it from 3 last night. I think it was, at one point I looked up, he was 2 for 10 or 2 for 11. But we always talk about this. You can't turn those shots down. Like, that's a big shot.
Especially the way he's been playing of recent.
It's the nature of the league, make or miss, right? And he happened to miss that one. But they did everything right around it. And I just look at some of the threes that they missed, Akil. They were good looks. And you have to keep shooting them. Get in the gym, keep shooting them, keep moving the ball, keep getting those shots. Eventually, they're going to go down. They're too good for it not to go down in the end.
Stick to your principles. That's often what we hear from Nick Nurse. Let's see what we hear from Nick Nurse right now.
They made one more play than you guys, but how did it feel at the end of that one?
Yeah, you know, first of all, I thought we played pretty hard, obviously, and you know, pretty energetic and pretty tough, right? And like the way we hung in early. It didn't feel great early, right? But we hung in there and hung around, and then we kind of found a little bit of a stretch, you know, where we made a few. I thought we were really creating really good shots, like all night, like probably not quite rewarded percentage-wise for the quality of the shots that we did create. And then, yeah, they just they hit a couple big ones there in the last, you know, couple minutes to get them back level, and yeah, one more play probably. Yeah.
You talked before the game about guys needing to step up individually as part of the collective. You know, Pascal had a brilliant game, but then there wasn't a whole lot of support from guys you might normally get it from, like Scotty and Fred had bad shooting nights.
Yeah. Let me see here. I mean, Fred obviously was getting some good looks and didn't hit them tonight for sure. Scotty didn't have a ton of attempts here, 3 for 9. I thought Scotty probably had a chance. He turned down a few that were, you know, rhythm plays that he probably could have taken, but again, not maybe feeling it, so was trying to get to the next play on some of those. But yeah, I think, you know, what I said before, I think we created a lot of great shot opportunities for some of the other guys, and they just, you know, weren't quite there. And it was, you know, nice to see Chris, you know, contribute with, you know, a good scoring night that he hasn't had in a while.
What do you think of OG coming back for the first time in 10 days or so?
Well,
guard okay? The numbers don't look great, but he seemed to play.
No, he
well.
played. Yeah, I thought he played pretty good. No, first of all, it's good to see him hit, you know, a few threes. Right, that's the big thing. I think that has been missing from his game for a while. He's had a little problems with his hands, so maybe that's cleared up and good. Yeah, he was battling, man, and I don't think he felt the greatest as far as conditioning wise. He was tired pretty quick, it seemed like, and he wasn't off a back-to-back, right? But he really battled, so it was good to see. I think that one will help him get back in shape. 40 minutes of wrestling with those guys he was wrestling with tonight, for sure.
In comparison to last night's game, how did you feel about tonight's defense?
Well, I think our defense was really good tonight, right? I think it was executed pretty well. They're really hard to cover, right, with the amount of matchups that you have problems with. So you gotta really work, and then you gotta really scheme, and we did a really good job. I thought we had them out of flow and rhythm for almost all of the game, and then they made a couple plays that got tough there. I mean, Embiid kind of started getting it there on the elbow and scoring a bit, and we were kind of staying home there for the longest time, and then we kind of made the decision that we better try to go get him a little bit, and those guys hadn't made any really all night, too many, and then they finally bit back-to-backers, which was tough, but we hung in there anyway and got it to overtime.
Welcome back to RT, saying good morning to Erica on the stream. And
What
to
up,
Adrian.
Erica? What up?
We were saying, Erica, are you at work? Like you should be at work, or are you at work?
She
like,
could be. She could be doing it all right now.
If she's at work, but
no,
also
she's got
too,
the little thing in the corner, right?
Yeah.
Working, but the little screen in the corner.
No, she's paying attention to us. Also to Adrian, if you're worried about Otto Porter, he's still injured. No recent updates as to when he's coming back. So we'll keep you up to date, of course, right here on Raptors Today, a.k.a. RT. But right now we have to ask a question to Sherm and Jonsey. Jonsey, I'll start with you. Does it look worse than it really is? Because they've been competitive in some of these games, even against Orlando, maybe not against Golden State, but you saw last night against the Sixers. Is it worse? Does it look worse than it really is?
I think it depends on your attitude, like the attitude that you take towards it. And for me, it's 6 in a row, and on paper that looks bad.
Yeah.
But last night, you're right there. The Golden State game, there was nothing to that one.
Yeah.
The Brooklyn game, you were right there.
That was Kyrie being Kyrie.
The Sacramento game, you were right there. And by the way, the Orlando Magic went into Boston and won 2 in a row.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So, to me, it looks bad, but the optimist in me says the make-or-miss league and the make-or-miss nature of the league, it's not probably as bad as it looks. It could easily be like a 3-3 over that stretch. I mean, Orlando beat them twice. All right, let's give Orlando that. Sacramento, a home game, you're right there. Brooklyn, a home game, you're right there. Philly, on the road, you force it to overtime, you have chances. So to me, and this is just me, it's not that bad.
Sherm, how do you address the panic in Raptor Nation?
Wait, panic?
There's panic out there. You read Twitter?
Well, no, I don't. Not for that.
I look at it from a different perspective. Losing 6 in a row is bad.
Yeah.
Like, there's no other way to cut it. But where I find the positive in this is that I think against Philadelphia, from a defensive perspective, this was more of what we knew the Raptors to be.
Right.
The other losses, teams were still shooting over 50%. And, knocking down threes on them. I thought against Philadelphia we were reminded of how good this team can be defensively. And to me, that's a building block moving forward. You still lost the game. And we're not trying to create any moral victories here.
There are none.
But what we're seeing and what we saw in that game was they ran into a team that was as hot as anybody in the league. Joel Embiid was on fire during the stretch. And even though he had 28 and 11, he was 6 of 16 from the floor.
Yeah, their defensive scheme worked against him.
So you're going to get your numbers, fine. But if you're going to go 6 of 16, we'll take that because you've been torturing other people with efficiency. And the Raptors, from a defensive perspective, the first quarter, as I mentioned, held them to 31%, which the first quarter has been a nightmare for the Raptors as of late. And they were able to get it done defensively and held Philly to 40% from the floor for the game. So if we're talking about moving forward and building, that's a sign of the Raptors getting back to who they are. The offensive side still needs work. But defensively, I like what I saw from the Raptors against a hot team with an MVP candidate.
All right, and 3 of those losses came without one of the members of the Raptors' big 3, you could say, which is OG.
Yeah, injuries have been a problem for the Raptors.
OG returned, of course, against Philly. Not probably, ready to play his usual role, but the defense was there for OG. 13, 4, and 3 for 3 of 9 from the field. Oh, you got a point here.
No, finish what you're gonna say.
I was gonna throw it right back to you. 40 minutes of play for a guy who's kind of been on the shelf for a little bit. Impressive, no?
Well, it's not a coincidence that this team was better defensively.
Yeah.
And OG enters the lineup.
Absolutely.
So it makes complete sense. You look at what OG's able to do. When he's on the floor, this team is decidedly better defensively because he's a steals guy, because he can keep people in front of them, because he can turn people over. You look at the numbers, and OG is a significant impact on the defensive end. We talked about this on Raptors Tonight. Look at that play. He chucks on Embiid, and he's able to get back out and steal the pass. And you saw in the game, they tried to, especially James Harden, he was trying to get switches to get OG off of him in the screen and roll. And when OG was on him, there wasn't much he could do. But I thought collectively, because you have a defender who can keep the ball in front of them, who can be strong and physical, and who can stop penetration and be active on the help side, the whole team is better as a result of that. So it's no surprise.
It's interesting because Fred was asked on Sunday after Golden State, you might get OG back tomorrow. How does that help? And Fred said, well, it's not a one-man job. It's not a one-man job, but one guy can make a big difference.
Yeah, that one dude's doing a lot.
that one guy can make a big difference. When they say you're one player away, if it's LeBron back in his day, or Jordan, you're good. And I look at OG the same way. There was a sequence late in the game where Embiid, he switched on to Embiid, and Embiid got into his bag and was trying to. It might have been the second last play, and OG straight up, no tricks. I'm going to sit in my chair. I'm going to defend you, contain, contest. We're going to rebound, and we're going to get the stop that way. And the unique thing about OG is, with his ability to play passing lanes and get steals, sometimes people look solely at steals as a measure of good defense. And we know it's not. Steals sometimes means you're gambling, and if you get it, great. If not, the store is wide open.
Allen Iverson.
OG is a guy that is calculating in the passing lane and when to go for steals. Otherwise, he's a rock-solid man-on-man defender and a great help defender. So, no, I don't think it was any fluke that the defense went the way it was, and they held Philly to 40-odd% because OG was back in the lineup.
Now, while OG was out, there were extra minutes available, and one of the guys who kind of was the beneficiary of that was Malachi Flynn. Fans have been calling for Malachi Flynn, if you are paying attention to the things they're saying on Twitter and Instagram. Yeah. Impressions, Jonesy, I'll start with you on what Malachi Flynn was able to do, because sometimes the numbers don't impress, but this is a young guy who's trying to find his confidence in a role with this group.
My mantra, my definition around Malachi is that he has, in 3 years, become a very good young professional. He stays ready, he waits for his turn, and when he goes in, he plays effectively within the role that he's given. Making shots, trying to be the best defender he can, being a playmaker, not kind of, getting in the way. And I like what he's done. I mean, you look at the points and the minutes there on the board. I think he's an effective player. And right now, he's kind of caught in a numbers crunch. But with the injuries, he's getting his chance. And I like the way he plays when he's on the floor. Yeah, there are limitations, but everybody has their limitations. But I like what he does when he's on the floor.
Well, Nick Nurse talked about him prior to the Philly game, and he said, he likes what he's doing. He's making shots, which they desperately need from the three-point line. And he said he likes his organizational play, getting people into place and running the offense and being a part of that flow. And, if you're going to install confidence in your head coach, let him know that you can run the show. Let him know that you can set things up, and also you can make shots. And it's so glaring, the fact that he's making shots, because they aren't making them consistently. Yeah. So for him to have this kind of space cleared out for him, and he walks into it and he's doing what this team needs, it should bode well for him, because he's gotten lost in the shuffle sometimes. And he's a guy who I feel, even in spot minutes, can help. If he's on the floor for 5 minutes, I think he's going to do positive things for 5 minutes. And I think he's just reminding everybody, it's dark, but I can do some things that can help add some light to the situation. So kudos to him, as you said, taking care of an opportunity and showing that he's going to be professional and he's going to just be able to step into that and be productive, even if it's a limited space or he gets a bit more role.
When he's on the floor, you can tell this guy knows what he's doing and he's worked on his game. He doesn't, some guys get an opportunity on the floor and it's obvious that they're lost and their game hasn't been honed and prepared for the pressure of what's going on. I don't see that with Malachi.
And it helps too. Sorry, it's this team used to be predicated on a small backcourt.
Right.
Kyle and Fred used to play together a lot.
And we've seen Malachi and Fred.
And now
playing
we're
together.
seeing
Fred
Malachi
likes
and
that.
Fred.
Yeah.
Well, because he can play off the ball, he can play on the ball. He can be a shooter, he can be a penetrator. He knows that he has another ball handler to take care of that. And I think Nick Nurse is playing with that a bit because they've had success in the past. Now, Malachi is not Kyle Lowry. We know that. But that small backcourt, there is some positives to that as well.
Yeah, it's important to get Fred VanVleet off, especially if a team
Absolutely.
is struggling from three and he's your best three-point shooter.
He is a very good catch and shoot player.
All right, so now let's go around the league, talk about the league from a bigger perspective. And in the NBA, we're often talking about the referees and whether or not they are too involved in the game. So we're going to take it back to the 17th of December, almost halftime in a matchup between Ja Morant's Grizzlies and the Oklahoma City Thunder. When Ja Morant's having a conversation with the fan courtside, and according to the Pool Report post-game, Ja Morant was given his second technical for questioning the integrity of the officials. Now, to the layman's eye, it looks like he's having a conversation with the fan courtside, which was later revealed to be true. Your impressions of whether and let's talk about it because we saw Luka Doncic and Jason Kidd get kicked out last night. Have the refs gone too far?
My thing has always been you cannot legislate emotion out of the game.
Yep.
You can't. I mean, bad call, a guy reacts, competitive. You got to kind of, the officials, and the good officials are able to do this at times. They back off, let the guy vent. We've talked about it. We've been in the meetings with the officials, with Joe Dumars, the vice president of operations. We will let emotion be spontaneous as long as it dissipates the right way without, I guess, in quotes, trying to show up the official.
We saw Scotty Barnes clap, get a technical. We saw Draymond Green bark at the
So subjective,
official
right?
all the way up and down the
And
court.
subjective.
That's the other part of it that I don't like. You can't referee a personality, referee the game. Like there are some guys that have a longer leash than others.
Draymond.
And I don't think you can referee the personality. And the more you try to be consistent with that, the more issues it creates. How do you throw Ja Morant out for having a conversation with a fan and the referees in the area? Are you that sensitive?
Well, to the question about, the official and the reaction, we don't know what was said by the fan.
No.
We don't know what was said by Ja Morant. But it looked like the fan and Ja Morant were in agreement about something about the official. And the official didn't like it. But to me, it's if a fan says something to a player about an official, and the fan could have said anything. It could have been the worst thing ever. If the player does not say what the fan says, but just agrees with it, that official has a choice to make. That official has a choice to make at that juncture. And especially in a game where it's a star player.
Yes.
And
On the road.
On the road. He's already got a technical foul.
You put him on notice.
Right. What he said had to hit you a bit personally.
But you made a great point earlier before the show, which was about like the tiered pricing and the fact that like people are coming out to see Ja Morant. If you're in Oklahoma City, this is your one shot to watch Ja Morant. It's halftime, and he's off the floor for the rest of the game, and you paid
In a 6-point loss.
Yes, and it was almost a 20-point game at that point. But you paid premium dollar to go see Ja Morant, and because the refs' feelings are hurt per se, you don't get to see
Again,
that.
it depends on what was said.
Yes.
We don't know verbally what Ja said. We saw the hand gesture. Clearly the fan said something. So I don't know what was said, and maybe what was said warranted that. But my gut's telling me the fan said something worse than Ja said.
In this age where we don't have star players playing and they're sitting out for injury management, injury recovery, load management, you have a star in a game like that, and that's the second technical that gets him run?
Yeah.
I just, to me, that's too much. Now, let it go, running up the floor on the next trip. Hey, man, don't get into that.
Okay.
I want to hear that.
Now, speaking of stars, let's talk about another star. Nikola Jokic recorded a 40-point, 25-rebound, 10-assist triple-double, and that is the first one recorded since Wilt Chamberlain.
Everything since Wilt.
Wilt did it 4 times.
There's
by
an
the way.
entire column about since Wilt.
Absolutely.
His second,
3 magic words.
he
Since
won
Wilt
his
Chamberlain.
second MVP. What are the odds, Sherm, I'll start with you, that a third MVP is coming down the pipe for Nikola Jokic?
Do you want a number or just what do I feel about the possibility of that? Because that game was ridiculous. He had 19 of his 27 rebounds in the first half. So he was balling out as usual. It would be historically a shame to know that Jokic has 3 MVPs if he gets the third one. And Shaq, he has more than Shaq.
And Kobe.
And Kobe.
And as
to
many
me-
rings as Akil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that doesn't
and
doesn't
Jonsey.
Yeah.
And me.
Yeah, that doesn't make
Combined.
sense. That doesn't make sense to me. Having said that, he's playing great basketball. His team, the position of his team second in the West, it's worthy of MVP consideration.
Yeah.
And the scary thing is Joel Embiid is doing it again.
Yes.
Joel Embiid, you could argue, there's a safe argument there to say Joel Embiid could have been the MVP as well.
I make that argument often.
There you go.
Because of his impact on the defensive end
So
of
if
the court as well.
exactly. So
Bingo.
if it happens that Jokic wins a third, I think people have a right to lose their mind.
Yeah.
Now, and that's not any kind of disrespect to Jokic. He is a phenomenal basketball player, but you got to draw a line on something.
Yeah.
And defensively, he's not existent.
You're setting a precedent here.
Well, how often do you take the MVP out of the game for defensive purposes at the end of the game?
Good question.
To me, and that's where I go back to. My MVP plays both ends of the floor, and this one, it's almost like crying wolf. They're second in the West. He's dropping these numbers. If they, finish with 1 or 2 in the conference, this might be the year that I would give him the MVP, and maybe taking away one of those others where it could have gone to Embiid, or there were other people in the consideration like Chris Paul or Devin Booker or people
Or
like
Giannis.
that. Giannis,
We're taking him for granted.
yeah, Giannis.
He's
is,
now in LeBron status.
yeah,
He's-
LeBron,
Jordan status, all
Jordan,
that
like,
stuff.
and that's why they named the MVP after Jordan, because he could have been every year. But I think this might be, if they finish 1 or 2, this might be the most legit. And it's like the boy who cried wolf. He doesn't get it this time, and the other times he did.
Okay, well, now it's time for us to talk about the next opponent for the Toronto Raptors, and that will be the New York Knickerbockers, who are currently on a 7-game win streak, which is pretty impressive because people have kind of written them off.
They wanted Tibbs fired.
They did. They were
Nobody
call-
saw this coming.
Well, the New York is like Philly, right? The fans will turn on you extremely quickly.
Yes,
but
yeah.
let's talk about the simple fact that Jalen Brunson was a big part of that Dallas Mavericks team that went to the Western Conference Finals with Luka Doncic. And then free agency came. They thought that maybe him and Donovan Mitchell would end up as a Knick. That didn't turn out. But now he is the man in the backcourt for New York, and he's kind of changing things, Jonesy. But let's talk with Sherm about what Jalen Brunson's doing on the court to allow this Knicks team to become so darn successful.
Well, he does so many things, and here you see him in transition. He's able to get to the screen, and look how he gets the defender on the level of the screener. And I don't know what kind of defense Indiana's playing there, but nobody's helping. He stops behind the screen, which is something that players don't do. Guys are underneath, you stop behind. And again, he can run offense, but he does a good job in screen and roll. You have to be a smart screen and roll player. Look how he snakes. They're in a drop defense. He's able to create space, get behind his screener, and the defender doesn't come up. He knocks down the elbow jump shot. And his ability to break down the defense and get into the guts and make plays for teammates. Look at all the white jerseys he attracts there from the Bulls. He drops it off for an easy 2-point dunk. And then, he's small, but he's got some stuff in his bag. He's got some real good stuff to get his shots off, and he's patient. He's very, very calculated on his approach. Didn't get anything personally. Came out, penetrated, sucked the defense in, finds a wide-open shot for R.J. Barrett. He has been so good for this team, and Dallas didn't want to pay him.
Yep.
Okay. How much could they use him now
Yes.
with Luka, who needs the help in Dallas, who is another MVP candidate.
Yeah, Brunson getting all career highs across the board right now.
I'm surprised that they didn't bring him back and keep that band together with as far as they went last year in Dallas.
Now let's talk about the other side of the ball for the New York Knickerbockers, and that is the defensive side of the ball. They're averaging 99 points per 100 possessions, one of the best defensive ratings in the league. And what's working defensively for this Knicks group?
It's Tibbs. I mean, you play for Tibbs, you better play defense. They got pasted by Dallas back on December 3rd. And since then, the 7-game win streak, 4 opponents held under 100, and there's great help right there. Okay? Here's a nice job. They get the ball into gaps. They're nice job on the screen roll. Mitchell Robinson in a bit of a drop situation, but he recovers, challenges the shot, blocks it. You play for Thibodeau, you better be on your horse defensively. Another one here. Great job. Robinson, boxes and elbows. And watch Brunson. He I wouldn't say it's a full stunt, but he discourages and then helps and recovers to make the steal. Great job here again. In the post. And Julius Randle applying enough ball pressure to encourage the pass and then dropping back, kind of like, again, stunting again, and then making the steal. They've done a terrific job. There's a defensive rating you're talking about, Akil. And I just look at, since that Dallas game, they have really kind of listened to and been on what Tibbs is preaching defensively, and that's what he does.
So for this Toronto Raptors team going into MSG, what are your keys, Jonsey? Sherm, quickly before we get out of here.
Well, the shot's not falling for the Raptors, and the defense of the Knicks are very good, so you better get to the basket. You better get in there, sink that defense to create better looks or get them into foul trouble. They're tough.
Better play your own defense, too, the same kind of stuff that we saw in Philly.
Wednesday night, 7:30 from Madison Square Garden, the Toronto Raptors look to snap their losing streak against a streaking New York Knicks. You can catch that on Sportsnet 590 for the radio call and TSN on TV. 7:30 tip. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.